5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Check. Hello. Welcome in. Check. Hey, we're going to give it another second, guys. We're having some issues with the live feed. We're going to get started here in just a second. We were having issues. We're good now. I'm just going to give a second to refresh on Facebook.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. 5.
Hello, and welcome into the show, everybody. I'm so glad you are here. I haven't done an episode since the Ukraine thing just because I didn't want the news to dictate what I talked about. I feel like I wanted to give you guys something with a little bit more sustenance to take with you. So I waited a while till I had something, and I have a couple of guests lined up. So just because I haven't been doing an episode, don't think I haven't been working on the show. My name is John. I'm the host of JJ's Live Show, and I'm so glad you are here. Today, I have a unique topic for you guys. It's something that I can't say that I take credit for coming up with this. I don't know if it's a phrase or a question, but here it is. Are you a good investment? This is what I mean. People are around us, or hopefully people are around you that have done something to pour life into you, right? It can be big things, it can be little things. Big things would be your parents. Your parents raised you, hopefully. If not, then you can't relate with this. But for me, I had a dad and a stepmom and a mom that raised me. And over time, it wasn't perfect, but over time, I feel like they have they've lended me hands. They've helped me with advice. My stepmom still helps me to this day, just keep my life on track. And then you have other ways where you have friends that give you advice. You have maybe a mentor or a teacher or a coach that have taken time out of their life to invest in you. And it could be for multiple different reasons. It could be selfish reasons. It could be that maybe they want to live vicariously through you. However, I do believe that there are people out there who genuinely want to see certain people succeed with no selfish inhibitions about it. That could be a coach, a teacher, like I said. And I want to know if you have been good with that investment. What does that mean? If you as a person go to a friend for advice, do you at least listen to it? Maybe put something in action? I'm not saying every friend gives you good advice. Look, I've gotten terrible advice from my friends. Some advice I've followed and it's bit me in the butt. Some advice I knew was bad and I ignored. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm perfect. I'm far from perfect. I haven't accomplished anything extraordinary yet, although I do believe that there are things in my life that will come. As with everybody listening, if you're listening to this right now, I'm investing into you, right? In a way, well, you're kind of investing into yourself for listening to this, because I do believe that there's something in this topic for everybody. Now, with this show, it is customary for me to not write a script, partly because it is a live show. So if you're listening right now and you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch, you can comment on either platforms and I interact with you. So I don't really write a script for the show, simply because sometimes I have written some bullet points and I don't even cover them because the live audience takes over the show, which is what I want. However, this is a subject that I've thought about on and off since I was in high school, whether I'm being an investment to the people who pour life into me. And the reason why I think this is a sensitive topic for some people is because maybe you haven't had somebody to pour life into you, or you haven't had somebody pour, invest in you as a person. And I don't mean like you haven't had anybody come buy you lunch or whatever. I mean somebody who has been around that has actually believed in you and has set out time. Time is money, right? So we can use time as an investment tool. They've set time and resources to actually not help you, because that's not really the word I'm looking for. It's more like build you up, to tell you that and to help you on your journey of life, to help you or guide you on your journey of life, to motivate you in your journey of life, to lend a hand, because at some point we've all needed help for something. Lean on me when you're not strong, right? That's a famous song. Lean on me. I'm not a good singer. I'm not going to try to sing it. But when you're not strong. Sorry, I couldn't finish. I feel like, that show, The Office, when Andy's like, he gets interrupted. He's like, I can't not sing the rest of the melody. It's like holding his sneeze. That's what that felt like. Anyways, at some point in your life, hopefully, somebody has invested in you. Now, it's up to you. What are you going to do with that investment? Are you going to be a good return on the investment? I'm not saying that if somebody, let's just say, if you're an athlete, athletes are relatable to me because I'm an athlete, but also it's just because it's kind of like the picture perfect of somebody pursuing an amazing goal, right, of becoming a professional athlete, making lots of money, and then, that be their dream, their life's work, getting paid off. And no, I do not think professional athletes get paid too much money. Let's just tackle this topic for a second. Done now that we're on it. Professional athletes literally devote their entire life to their craft. And some athletes get paid more than others, and that's how it's going to be for forever, just like in any business. Some people get paid more than others. But an athlete invests time, sacrifices, have other people invest in them to be great. And when you reach that point, when I say have you being a good return on your investment, I don't mean like literally, pay them back in any sort of way. I mean, have you given yourself the return? Because in reality, it's a return on you, right? A return on the investment, what I mean is kind of more on you. Are you actually giving back to the advice given to you, which is giving back to yourself? Are you letting people pour into you, but you have the lid on so you don't capture it all? It's really on you. In reality, there's no shortage of coaching. There's no shortage of advice. There's no shortage of motivational speakers. Open up your Instagram. I bet 1 out of every 5 videos you see are people trying to give you advice, people trying to motivate you. Yes, they might be trying to sell something or pitch something, but it's out there. What we lack in this world are coachable people. One thing that I work on constantly in my craft of football, not Minecraft, I don't play Minecraft, in my craft of football is being coachable. There are some things that I'm very coachable in, and then there are some things that I know that I struggle being coachable in, and that's something that I work on every time I'm at practice, every time I train, and it's, in reality, when a coach is getting on me, if you hear my dog's barking, I'm sorry. He's barking. Of course, right when I start going live, he decides to bark. Oh my gosh, I really want to go out there and yell at him. And hopefully you guys can't hear that. Anyways, it's kind of throwing me off a little bit. I'm not going to lie to you. In reality, there's no shortage of motivation. There's no shortage of investments. There's no shortage of people wanting to help you. Maybe people that are close to you don't want to help you. What there's a shortage of is people that are willing to take actually receive what they're being handed and implementing it. Right? You can watch a motivational video on YouTube. You can listen to your friend talk to you. You can listen to a mentor talk to you. You can sit in a meeting with a pastor, with a friend, with a coworker, with a boss, with a coach. You can even hire a life coach. And I think that's something that I overlooked for a lot of years, hiring a life coach, because I was like, why would I pay someone money to give me advice, I guess? But in reality, I think it might be a good business model, good on the consumer and of the person providing the coaching, because if you invest your literal money, you're more likely to take those things and put in action. The thing is that we take everything in this current time in our, generation or culture or whatever. There is no shortage of content. That's the problem. You're listening to this podcast right now. If you've made it this far in this podcast, you are probably going to turn on Netflix after this. You're probably going to listen to Spotify before this, Spotify after this. Hopefully, maybe listen to another episode. I have no shortage of my own content here on Spotify. There's probably, I think there's like 40 plus hours of just my content on YouTube and Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. Shameless plug, we're on Apple Podcasts now. Make sure you go subscribe and rate 5 stars or 10 stars or however many stars it is, just to max it out. Leave a review. So my challenge to you, if you're listening to this, and just to be clear, sometimes I talk about things on the show, and I'm talking it right back to myself. I can see myself. If I click this little button, I can see myself to my right. And I am talking directly to myself. You want to see something cool? If you're watching, look, I got 2 cams set up. Boop, 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 boop. Little side action. Let's just leave this up for a minute. There is no shortage of content. What there's a shortage of is people implementing. I can't say this enough. What there's a shortage of is people implementing what they're receiving. Every time I can think of back in my life where I didn't realize somebody was investing in me because it was uncomfortable. Hard conversations I've had with, mentors or pastors or coaches or even friends, where at the time it was uncomfortable. maybe it was my parents too. Like at the time, I didn't really want to hear what they were saying. Sometimes it was about things I messed up. Maybe it was things that I was doing wrong. Maybe it was like maybe a course correction of life that I needed to do. But at the end of the day, sometimes you will get something that's hard to hear. Sometimes you'll get things that are easy to hear. Some things you love to hear, like, oh, you're doing great. You're doing this. I believe in you, blah, blah, blah. No matter what it is, whether it's extremely easy to hear, extremely hard to hear, whether it's something extremely fun to listen to about yourself, whether it's something extremely hard to listen to about yourself, you need to take it all in with a grain of salt and you need to put it on a shelf. I do this with every advice, every compliment, whether it's good or bad or timely or untimely. What I do is when somebody gives me advice or a compliment or even a criticism, I take it and I put it on a shelf, like mentally in my head. And later on after the conversation, I pull it out. Maybe I write it down. Sometimes I do write it down. Or I listen, like maybe sometimes it was like on a text or a phone call and I go back and read those texts or listen to the audio of it or whatever. And I take it back out and I listen to it later on when there's no maybe emotional, maybe I got mad in the conversation, maybe I got super happy in the conversation, where there's no emotional attachment, right? So this is just a tip. I put every advice, every compliment onto a shelf or criticism onto a shelf and I pull it back out later. Sometimes it's timely and sometimes it can be something like implement right then or sometimes I agree with it. Other times, though, it's not timely, and other times it is bad advice. And I don't disregard it. What I do is I still mentally put it back on the shelf, and I think about it for a little while longer. I've looked back on things that some people have said to me that at the time I was like, I don't know what you're trying to tell me. I've had people say, hey, I see you doing this with your life, and blah, blah, blah. And at the time, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I've been like, man, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't see that for myself, blah, 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 blah. And then years later, I'm like, man, I'm actually implementing or I'm remembering advice someone gave me a long time ago that applies to me now but didn't back then. Or, you know what I'm trying to say? I don't know if what I'm trying to say makes any sense, but don't disregard anything anybody ever tells you. And also, don't soak it up in the moment, whether it's good or bad things. You need to analyze advice or compliments or criticisms of yourself when there's no emotional attachments, right? Let's just make it easy for everybody. Everybody, or most people here have probably given a speech in person, or maybe your job is you're someone who gets up and you speak in front of people. Maybe it's at work or at meetings. Maybe you're a pastor or you're a leader, you're a coach, and maybe you taught a class, maybe you gave a presentation, and afterwards, while you're doing it, maybe you're trying to become a professional speaker of some sort of professional communicator, and you know some things that you did right and wrong during the moment, right? Or maybe you were oblivious and thought everything went right or everything went wrong. But afterwards, you start to get, hey, great presentation today. I really like when you did this and that. Or maybe a boss comes, hey, you need to next time do this, do that. Sometimes we really focus on the things we did right after something that we performed. Sports, presentations, yada, yada, yada. But in reality is we need to focus on both the good and the bad. If you're doing something right 100% of the time, maybe it's like something like for football, I know there's some things I do almost perfect every single time or relatively perfect. And yes, I do brush up on those skills or that knowledge of it just to stay sharp. But if I spend all my time focusing on the good things, I will not get better at the things I'm not good at. Right? The deficiencies I have. And that comes from when I get myself out of the drills, post after the game, maybe the day after, watching film without any emotion attached to it. And same thing with your presentations or whatever, any criticism you get or compliments you get. Afterwards, sitting down, reviewing the information that you've received, good and bad, and seeing how it applies to you then. I've had people tell me, okay, I used to play guitar and sing out in public. I knew I wasn't a good singer, All right. I led kids worship for a while. And I've had some people tell me, man, that song you did, you sounded really good when you sang it. And I know I didn't. I know I'm not a good singer. You heard me sing on this podcast for like a split second. I'm not a good singer and I know it. And I'm not saying that to fish for a compliment and be like, oh my, like I'm not a good singer, but in reality I am. I'm fishing for a compliment. No, like I'm actually not a good singer and I know it and I'm fine with it. Well, I'm not fine with it. I cry about it every night, but that's besides the point. Now, other things like with maybe how I played guitar in the same situation. There are times that I've killed it and there are times that I didn't kill it. And the times that I did okay and I listened to other people say, you know, you did this good, this good, this good. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you. Then I go back and analyze it and I'm like, okay, this person said 3 things that were good. And maybe 2 of those things were accurate. One of them I put back on the shelf. And then I focus on, you know, like, okay, it wasn't as bad as I thought. You know what I mean? And kind of like build myself back up because sometimes we tear ourselves down after a bad performance or a bad review or a bad whatever, or even a bad conversation or a tough conversation we've had with friends about criticism. And we tear ourselves down. We keep us there. I am the king at this. I overanalyze a lot of things. I overthink a lot of things. And I'm a king of this where we sit in a meeting and you tell me 5 things good and 1 thing bad, I totally forget about the 5 things you said good. And I focus on 1 thing I did bad. But sometimes I need to remind myself of the things I do well. That way I don't keep myself in the slumps. Does that make sense? I know this is kind of all over the place. I didn't really give out specific bullet points. And I didn't say, hey, this is tip number 1 and this is tip number 2. I'm just having a real conversation with you guys. This is something I think we've all at one point listening to this and my audience, we're all kind of similar minded because that's how this works is if you're listening to this, you probably relate with me and you're a go-getter, you want to accomplish things. If you're listening to this podcast, hopefully you're not a loser sitting around doing nothing and hopefully this relates with you a little bit. And if you're all listening and you feel like you're a loser, you're probably not. But if you do feel like it, what are you going to do differently to make yourself not feel like a loser? I am not one to sit here and tell you like, okay, like let's say if my wife comes up to me and she says, I don't like the way I look. I want to lose weight. That's not an issue we have, and that's not really a conversation we've had, but I'm just for an example. I'm not going to say, you don't need to lose weight, honey. Like, you look great. Like, I'm going to say you look great, and I think you're hot, and you're beautiful, and I love you. But if you want to accomplish something, what are we going to do to help you reach those goals? This might be a bad example because it's a sore subject for some people, but you see what I'm getting at? I am not going to disregard her aspirations just to make her feel good, right? I'm going to tell her what I think. I'm going to tell her she looks beautiful and whatever. And I'll be like, okay, what can we do? Like, do I need to cook different things at the house? Do we need to change up the diet in the house? Do we need to buy different groceries? Do we need, like, you know what I'm saying? Do we need to like go to the gym together more often? Like that's the way I help other people with their goals and aspirations. And one thing to conclude on with this, and we'll wrap up here, is that when you've been poured into, when you've been invested in, when you've been someone who has accomplished things and you have been a good return on investments for yourself and for others, there is a point where you give back. That does not mean, like, let's say you got rich because you listened to somebody's advice and you give them money for forever. That's not what I mean, but if you want to, go ahead. If you listen to my podcast and you feel like I've given you advice and you've made a lot of money, you can go ahead and feel free to drop some money. There's a link at the bottom. You can donate, whatever. Just joking. There really is. If you'd like to support the show, you can support the show. Go to Anchor. What is it? Is it anchor.com/JJ's Live? Or anchor.fm/JJ's Live Show. And you can support with like 99 cents a month or something if you'd like to. Continuing on. There is a point where you start to give back and you become the person that does the pouring out, that does the investing. Why does it help you? For one, it'll give you a sense of like accomplishment or like it feels good, right? Totally selfishly, it feels good to give back. It really does. It feels good to give someone a compliment. It feels good to give someone money. It feels good to give someone advice. It feels good to be like a coach to someone. There is a gratification to it. Another thing is that when you pour out, it gives you more to be able to get filled up. I look at it as like you're a big vase or you're a big like water pitcher. you can only get filled up so much before you're literally overflowing, and you got to pour some out to get some new one, to get some fresh water in, right? If you constantly just receive and don't pour back out, you are not really, I think there's a point of diminishing returns. You know what I'm saying? Like there comes a point where you can only receive so much before it's kind of like it doesn't do anything for you until you give back. And I think it's something like going back to the gratification thing. When you give somebody advice and they follow it, or if you give someone, critiques and keep in mind, don't talk out of your ass. Don't BS anything. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, like if it's something in your field, something you know about, something you've walked through and been through, and you can help somebody walk through that as well, whether it's about life, business, coaching, whatever aspect it is that involves failing or succeeding. Once you've walked through that, you can help somebody else walk through that, and it'll actually build yourself up as well, because that person then has trust in you, and they will do something to invest back into you. Does that make sense? It's like if I give, let's just say Jared, I don't know, I know Jared's, but I'm not talking about anybody specific. Let's say I help Jared with some coaching advice, right? I tell Jared, hey, this is what you do well, this is what you do bad, this is what you need to work on. And he implements it, and he builds a better business because of it, or has better athletes if he's a coach because of it. Then he's more inclined to do something to help me, right? And it's like I scratch your back, you scratch mine, and it also builds like a trust. Not only can he trust me because I gave him good advice, and he listened to it, and he's like, wow, that was good advice, and I'm so glad. It also builds trust the other way, because I gave him advice, and he then followed it, or I invested in him, and then he went out and became a good return on that investment. Does it make sense? It's like a two-way street. I don't think that this is a topic that a lot of people talk about, and that's why I wanted to talk about it today. And I'm so glad that if you've listened to this far, I'm so glad you've listened up to this point, and we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank you for listening to the show. I have my next guest is going to be an absolute banger, and the guest following I have two very big time guests coming up, and I can't wait to share with you guys. Make sure you guys follow on JJ's live show on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. I know we wrapped this up kind of quick, but I think I got everything across that I'm going to talk about. So if you listen this far, thank you for listening, and I can't wait to see you guys on the next one. Whoop. Hey, make sure whatever you're listening on, make sure you like, share, subscribe, whatever, rate 5 stars, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Peace. Hook 'em, go Buffs. As always, this is not going to be on the recording. As always, the music is done by the one and only Streamables on Spotify. Make sure you check out Streamables to use any of the music you're hearing absolutely free on your live shows, on your podcasts, on your YouTube videos, whatever. If you want to just even listen to it to study, I've done it a couple times. Check out Streamables on Spotify, and they are now on YouTube Music. It is copyright free. Use it on anything you want. And that's my little shout out for Streamables. It's not going to be on the recording, but it's here live on the YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Thanks for coming in, you guys. Have a good one.